I'm Jeff Bond, and welcome back to the Steward Chair, where we bring business leaders insights that go beyond the balance sheet to help you build a more resilient and impactful organization. Today, I'm speaking with Masami Sato, founder and CEO of B1G1, a certified B Corporation based in Singapore. Masami has empowered over 5,000 businesses to collectively create more than 380 million giving impacts. Let that soak in for a minute. We're unpacking the critical journey of an entrepreneur who discovered that her social enterprise was not just a platform, but a global movement. And this conversation is for every leader who knows that true competitive advantage isn't just about what you do, but how you do it. So today, we'll show you how to leverage the power of small to transform your company culture and the world. But before we get started, if you haven't already, please follow this podcast wherever you're listening for future content and consider sharing it with a fellow leader. Thank you, and let's dive in. Masami, welcome to the Steward Chair. It's so good to have you on.
Thank you, Jeff. It's so lovely to be here with you as well.
I feel so fortunate to know you and know so many people in the for good, for profit, for business. We all believe in the power that capitalism can have, but also the generosity that comes along with it. I'd love for our listeners to kind of step back in time and understand who Masami is as a traveling Japanese backpacker, with very little money back in the day, and what that time was like for you, and then kind of just share how the journey shaped your philosophy of leadership as service, and then kind of take us to when you first realized that B1G1 was not just a platform, but a movement.
Yeah, so stepping back, yes, I began my life as a young backpacker traveling around the world with very little resources, and that kind of really shaped how I think about the world today. But even going a little bit further back, I was an extreme introvert that who didn't know how to express myself. So it's really amazing to reflect the journey itself and realize, like, today I stand on stage and speak to large business audiences, and I would have never ever imagined something like that would happen to me when I was growing up in Japan, and seeing the world as a huge unknown big place where I felt somewhat disconnected a little bit, but looking for a place for myself. And so that kind of curiosity, even though I was introverted, took me to start traveling when I was young, because I wanted to just to figure out what was happening in the world. And because I didn't have a lot of money, even though I saved up money, working multiple jobs during school years in Japan. But when I started to experience the world outside and traveling without having a lot of money, then I had to really connect and rely on people's kindness and generosity. and then realized actually the world wasn't such a scary place, because wherever I went, there were always people who were kind to help me and take me in. And so many cases, they were very happy to share their meals with me or cook together, work together. And so I had this amazing few years in the younger part of my life. I feel extremely grateful and lucky that I did get to do that. But then also, when you are doing that, you really see the lives of people, because you stay with families and really understand how it is like to not be able to pay the medical cost of their own child when the child has certain, medical needs, or how it is like to not actually know where the next meal is coming from. And so being almost absorbed in people's life as a part of almost like a family, I really experienced different realities of the world. And I also stayed with some very wealthy people, quite well-to-do people as well. And, like, they are also kind and generous. We are all the same. But the kind of starting to see how having more didn't necessarily dictate how happy we could be. was an interesting time. And at one point of time, thought that the consumerism and the businesses were actually causing problems in the world. And then, with that idea that actually I didn't know how to solve all of these big challenges and the poverty and pollution. And so I tried to justify my existence in the world by becoming a hermit and live a life with farmers and make everything, not to buy things. And so I did that too, and learned a lot from nature and learning how to create more sustainable abundance through farming and working with communities. And so I did that in addition to the backpacking time. So the total of, let's say, 4 or 5 years, when I was actually figuring it all out, I learned many little lessons from how the communities worked, the family lived, and how nature worked. And then that later took me to design, help design the B1G1 initiative in the way that it is today.
I love that. And I think back to what you said about being an introvert and just being naturally curious about pushing yourself beyond kind of whatever that limiting belief might have been early on. What would you say, because I think there's so many people who listen to the show that are current leaders that maybe still have some self-limiting beliefs, but or are, aspiring business leaders, and it requires that curiosity. What was kind of the push? Was it someone that helped you kind of realize that you need to go out there in the world, or was that just self-actualized and you said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to kind of push myself outside of the comfort zone to enlighten me a little bit more?
Well, actually, I never went to, for example, motivational seminars, things like that, right? So I had no idea curiosity was important, or you had to push yourself outside of comfort zone. I had no idea of anything, but because when I was little and I had all sorts of these thoughts and ideas and the feelings inside, but I did not know how to express that, how to talk about it, how to even put it in words. So what happened was, during those years, being so quiet, and I genuinely believe that I could talk with insects, like communicate with insects or animals. And I didn't know how to talk with other kids who could talk in words. So I had so much kind of thoughts and ideas inside, which was like a forming. And then when I started to travel around the world, when I couldn't even speak the language anymore, because I didn't even speak English when I first started to travel, then what happened was, you had to really reset and relearn how to express yourself, not through words, but through actions. And in that moment, for example, helping people in their fields and, like growing food or cooking in the kitchen, and see how mothers at home grinded those spices and herbs and what those each piece meant for them. Or so I think that curiosity became central to making sense of everything for me. So I wasn't thinking like I had to be more curious. It's just, the world is naturally an amazing place. There are so many things that are there that deserve to have attention. And so, yeah. And then pushing myself out of my comfort zone was very easy to do, because if you don't have much money and if you didn't speak the language, you are always in the vulnerable position where you never know what would happen next. And you arrive in a new country, a new city, and sometimes, like, there are moments I had no money, and they accidentally sometimes, but no money. And then I had 2 weeks where I was in a country I didn't know anybody, but I had to find a way to be there. And so, looking back, some of the experiences I had when I had nothing brought me the most profound experience, learning, and connection that I did not even expect. So I don't think it was about conceptually what are the good thing to do or right thing to do. I was just looking for something, but I didn't know what I was looking for even. but I just wanted to make sense of why we were all here, why people cared what they cared, and what the real purpose of life and what we were doing were all about.
I think it's so fascinating, and you talk about the connection that world travel and embedding yourself in different cultures gave you, and the perspectives, and now leading a global giving movement that helps businesses embed purpose into their daily operations in small ways, in a very proactive way. And we talk to so many other leaders on this podcast and in our community that are thinking about going global, right? That are forming these global multicultural teams, and with that comes quite a bit of complexity to that. And so take me to where you're at today, working with global organizations and shepherding this movement. I think that includes over 3,000 businesses now, and maybe more than 380 million giving impacts worldwide, and maybe more than that now. But, how is that translated into shepherding this global movement now, B1G1?
Yeah. So to the people who never heard about B1G1, right? For their benefit, let me just explain what B1G1 is, because even the naming B1G1 sounds a little bit odd, right? So B1G1 started with the original idea of buy one, give one. That means every time something good happens in the business, we make something great happen in the world. And through my traveling days, what I was really passionate about myself was food, because I, became a cook and chef and worked in many different food businesses along the way, or I worked with farmers and prepared food. So I was really passionate about how food could play a part in bringing people together. And when I couldn't express myself through words, then I had food to express myself. So if I cooked well or cooked together with people, wherever I went, people said, "Oh, why don't you stay?" And please don't leave. So, so because of that, when I became accidentally a mother, and had my child, and I felt so connected and with this little life, and I, for the first time, realized that I couldn't say that, "Oh, I didn't know how to fix these big challenges, so I do nothing." I couldn't say that anymore, because my daughter was going to live in this world. And also there were lots of other children who weren't born in a circumstance like my daughter was born in. And so she was lucky, but not every child is lucky to start their life. So I realized that if I was to continue to live my life and love and care for my own family, then I wanted to do so in ways that also helped more children, other children, even if it's just one more child or, two more children. So I started my first venture nearly 25 years ago, with that idea of, one day when this business becomes successful, I wanted to build a soup kitchen and provide nutritious meals and education opportunity to street children in, some of the countries that I visited as a young backpacker. So on that journey, eventually our food company evolved to become Australia's frozen meal company. And then at one point of time, even though it was still a small business, we were distributing our packaged frozen meals to more than 150 retail stores across 3 different states. So through all of the challenges and difficulties that we overcame, we were seeing our own development and growth and success in a sense. But then it always felt like that one day we were going to make a difference. It seems to be kind of always about the future. So then one day this very simple idea came to me, and I thought, what if instead of trying to do something big in the future, we did something small every day from today, and then embedding the impact into our food product. And at that time, it was that every meal we sold, we would also give a meal to a child, right? So that buy one, give one concept was the source of B1G1 today. Then about 7 months later, after we realized the profound power of doing this little act of giving and kindness in everyday business. We decided to sell our food company in Australia and then moved to Singapore to start B1G1 as the global initiative. So over the last 18 years, since 2007, we created the systems, the processes, and curating partnerships with charitable programs around the world that meet our criteria, and then breaking down those important change and solutions into micro unit of impact, positive change. And so that so many businesses around the world can say, and regardless of size and stage of business, they can say, when something good happens in our business, we make something great happens in the world. So today we have, for example, coffee shop giving access to water. That's kind of like a nice example of B1G1, because so many, like 1 billion people around the world enjoy drinking coffee every day. So if we got all of these businesses to collectively support the construction of wells, to dams, to rainwater harvesting system, to water filter, to, then actually we can start to solve challenging issue like lack of access to clean water, and we have also accountants that are creating impacts for every tax return, or, so we have so many kinds of businesses embedding impacts in what they do, and collectively they created 383 million impacts. But this is really the essence of kind of B1G1. And so I think, really understanding that the businesses have a profound power to make a difference, because business is about business as usual, which means they can go anywhere and they can go across borders. They can touch lives in places that normal people can't, or even politicians or wealthy people, or there are lots of great big powers in the world too. But I think where ordinary businesses reach people is really the power and how we will make the change in the sustainable and kind of continuous and holistic ways. And that, I never really imagined that from the start that, we're going to have teams across the borders, and, we will be working with the team members, how we structure the HR challenges. So we never really designed this from the start with that intention. But if we are always thinking about how can we reach more businesses, how can we work with more causes, and gradually making these changes. And so not only that the B1G1 initiative itself is really driven by the power of small. I think how we evolve as a company, we are certified B Corp as well as, charity organization. We have these two organizations today. And so all of that come from the realization of each stage. Actually, we in order for us to become more effective, we have to set things up this way, or it's better that we work with people over there. And the pandemic also brought us new opportunity that, actually we could work from anywhere. So I think lots of unplanned things came together. But I also feel that the experience of traveling around the world and living and breathing with people in different places really helped me to have a deeper understanding of how we can continue to maintain this deep sense of care, respect, and collaboration, through all of the things we do.
Yeah, I would absolutely think so. And I think what's really neat about, you kind of gave a couple examples of accountants, and I've seen team medical supplies and health and wellness, they're linking these like member fitness milestones to charitable causes like providing food or clean water. Or I saw the team medical supplies, protects rainforests for every direct order, provides food for animals every 4,000 customer calls. But the impacts is what really caught me on this, because then you think about how that adds up. And, for instance, that team medical supplies in the rainforest, that's over 11 million impacts from what I saw on the math. And The fitness one is over 223,000 and over 9.6 million for the accountant that you talked about. And I could be off on the number, but I was just looking at how that adds up and the perception of impact that can create for, huge organizations that, want to link these small micro giving, the power of small, as you said, to the level of connection that people have to the company, representing way more than just profit alone. But with that too, I know that there's a lot of organizations now in multiple movements, whether it's the B Corp movement or B1G1 or any other movement where they're kind of socially or environmentally responsible. How do you respond to the concern that people have about like cause washing and marketing, virtue posturing? Because I think a lot of companies really want to do these things and they want to do it authentically, and it's part of their story. So, what kind of conversations are you having, and what kind of concerns, I guess, are leaders expressing when you talk about, these impact campaigns?
I think that sustainability topic can be simpler uh, uh, because so many businesses are becoming aware today. Like not the same 18 years ago. Like no businesses thought about even social impact or sustainability or even like giving back. It was more like what individual people did. Like that the concept of charity has been there forever, but people did it as individuals rather than businesses did it consciously, right? And then businesses focus had been that they needed to maximize their profit. That's what we were taught. So today things are changing because there seems to be more like a trend, almost like being more socially conscious. And so that's in a sense a good thing. But I think how to make this whole sustainability topic much simpler so that everybody can act on, or every business can act on, is to remove the notion of like how to do it right. Like what about the criticism and cynicism, and just put that aside and really think like, why do we do this? And because if the leaders of the companies were making decisions because they personally believed that it's the right thing to do, and it's what they cared about, because all of us care about our own families, friends, communities, or various topics that we really care about. So that genuine sense of care is the real source for making things happen, and it happen in the right way too. Because if we actually come from the right place, like not necessarily right or wrong, but the authentic place, and then we are also humble that we don't know the answers to all of the questions or doing it perfectly right when we start. But we are committed to learn from experiences and even mistakes. Then we start doing small things that we know today is the right thing to do. And when we find better ways or other good ways, or learned that this way didn't work out that well, then we actually adjust ourselves and keep showing up with the right intention. And then for businesses thinking about social responsibility or sustainability, I think aside from together with doing the things such as contributing to causes or even applying for B Corp certification, or aside from that, we all can be thinking about the culture of the business that we are intentionally creating with integrity. Because if the company has a strong culture, such as the Team Medical Supplies case, right? Like the company had a great culture before they joined B1G1 too, because the company had family members who were in the business that had really a strong family values in the business, even though they were business that already had 100 employees when they first joined us. But that primary, this sense of care as the family business was already there, and team members were kind of connected with that. So even if they weren't doing structured giving program before, and then they joined B1G1 and found really great opportunity in really bringing impacts in what they are doing, because that creation of impact and the positive feelings around that impact really resonated with the cultural background of their team, that worked enormously well. So I understand that creating culture is not an overnight thing. You can't say, oh, culture is like A, B, C, D, and then from today, all the team need to opt into this belief. You can't create it like this because it's actually something that you need to live and breathe. But really, like, it's work in progress. But when you have an approach to create and your commitment to create the culture, and as a leader actually stand with that, like, we might make mistakes some days, we might be a bit off or a bit annoyed by something sometimes, but we actually bring ourselves back with that like an anchor, what our culture is about. And then you combine that with the outlet to make a positive difference, then the reward of making a difference, or reward of giving, or reward of creating more smiles becomes just so powerful force for adding to that culture that you are creating daily. So I think what I would really want to share here is that the sustainability is simple, and we don't need to be perfect from day one, but probably reflecting on how we can show up as leaders on the day-to-day first, and what kind of team that we are creating to achieve the outcome and the mission and the purpose that we envision on a day-to-day basis. And then adding around it is the real impact, so that you're not only serving your customers well, but your team know that when they are doing so, it's good for them, but it's also good for the communities and good for the world. Then that's actually just such a powerful combination.
So powerful. And the good news is you see more and more companies saying that culture is a big part of their strategy now. And I think a lot of CEOs and boards and people who are like fiscally responsible for these companies realize that, you have to strengthen your culture, that this is what talent coming into the marketplace is looking for. They're looking for purpose and companies that stand for something then more than just profit alone. So I'm glad, whether it's hopefully it always comes from a place of sincerity, but even if not, right, that people are seeking out these programs as leaders to create a strategic advantage that drives their culture. Now, I imagine that, once they start seeing the impacts, that they become, true disciples of giving and these micro impacts. So whether they come to it from a place of sincerity or a place of just, trying to check a box, I perfectly, this would be something that every organization can do because it is so practical. And what I really like about it is the design system where giving is just a daily discipline. One of my favorite books is Profit First by Mike Malakowitz, and it's like, just pay a little bit into a profit account before you cover your expenses and all that, and you'll generate a profit for the company because of the discipline. But this creates the discipline, so that it's more than just a one-time event or a response to a crisis. Do you find that you're having to convince leaders of, like, maybe instead of making those big end of the year checks for some sort of tax advantage or whatever, just embed or bake it in? Is that a big sell for you, or are leaders already seeing the value of that when they come in?
Yeah, I think that almost everyone we connect with and talk with agrees on the power of small. Like, people recognize it, like, oh, actually just doing charity gala dinner once a year, and then, present the check, like, on that day it might feel good, but then after that there's nothing. So I think everybody recognizes today the power of habit and the power of regular activities. And there's so much more joy we get to experience daily when we have this as a part of our identity. Like giving is part of identity, and if a company already has that part of identity, when they have even like job interview, they can kind of like share a little bit about what they believe and what they are doing. And then when these out of those job candidates who could be equally skilled and capable, somebody jumps out and said, "Wow, I just so love it." And then when you actually form the team in this way, so that every person in the company is really looking for opportunities to give more, and creating this environment where there is so much giving spirit, not just for the contributions that companies make through B1G1, which is great. We want them to do more of that, but I think that giving spirit is really something really powerful that shows up in so many ways. So how do we serve our customers in this way? Because we feel great about showing up this way. It's benefit ourselves to be coming from the point of giving than kind of like, showing up like trying to maximize our own personal gain, right? Like among team, like people don't trust each other because everybody's after their own promotion and who is actually performing better than others, or, so I think this has profound power in creating the work that actually is far more enjoyable. And then one thing that all of us can think about is, yes, the financial success or fame, or, those can be very powerful too, because with those you could achieve more, trigger some big change, but ultimately, nobody can predict what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Like, so that means our life, our business, anything can just disappear suddenly. And if that was the case, in that moment, what really defined our success, I believe it would have been the fact that we totally enjoyed doing what we have done. And then also the journey that we shared with amazing people. So if we have friends and colleagues and partners who we really love working with, and then had lots of creative things and faced all the challenges, but are able to celebrate some of the mistakes as well as successes together. And then at the end of the game that we play, if we could say, "Oh, what a great game that we played." And we learned so much, we enjoyed so much, we made great things happen, and then look forward to the next game we get to play, then that would be the biggest win, I think.
I agree. And then building in those habits of impact into the DNA of business and baking that into the game, and making that possible is so fulfilling. So what a great analogy. One last one that you've given me, and I've been really thinking about this since you told me this in our last conversation, but you said we've drawn our family circle too small. So tell me, what type of legacy do you hope that B1G1 will leave, not just in terms of the projects funded, but in how it fundamentally changes the way business leaders think about their own family and the
Mm.
purpose of their
Mm.
business?
Yeah. So the family circle quote that the problem of the world is that we draw the circle too small was Mother Teresa. Um, and then it's an old quote, right? Like, but it's so relevant today as well, because lots of negative experiences or feelings that the people are experiencing in today's world is because we are drawing our circle too small. We are thinking that it's all about me, it's all about them, and I'm different from them and they are not good, or like we are different people, or so. I think when we start to divide ourselves and alienate others, then that actually doesn't serve anybody. anybody. But that's one thing. Another thing is, in today's world, compared to like decades or even centuries ago, our lives are just so interconnected. So just by looking around our room here, there are all sort of things that came from everywhere around the world, and the number of people who are involved in producing and shipping and distributing these things so that they arrive in our lives to make our lives comfortable and more enjoyable and more effective, or it's just enormous. And we cannot exist in this world exploiting other people's lives and not actually helping. And then to really hoard everything, right? And thinking that it's right because my family is safe in this world. And I mean, that kind of was okay, or sustainable for a little while. But now we are seeing extreme weather challenges or potential, probably like a war, that might impact us as well. And so it's about the time that we really learn from simple things like nature and go, actually, if we are harnessing this power of global connectivity, it's almost like we are part of this ecosystem. And when we learn from nature, then we know that the nature gives the, bees pollinate flowers as they collect nectar. Farmers give to the soil as they enjoy their next harvest. The life turns into death, but death feeds life. And so we are living in this enormous connectivity of the world. And business's sustainability relies on how we can learn from that and then to simply integrate this mechanism of effective contributions to uplift every part of this ecosystem. So it's easy to say, oh, it's a supply chain issues. Supply chain consultant should fix that. Or create laws to punish people who are doing bad stuff, or complain about the rich people who are not giving. Or we could do all these things and then do not take action. Or we could just say, I understand and I'm grateful for this global community that allows me to live the life I get to live. So every day, as I live my life and as I run my business, I want to make this global care as a part of what we do every day, just like as the bees pollinate flowers. So that micro contributions that we create, the opportunities we create in B1G1 is aimed to enable every business of every type, which also means every individual working in those companies and every customer taking part in those products, services, and activities to become part of this ecosystem of collectively improving and uplifting lives around the world just by living and working and doing the things we do every day.
It's a beautiful image. And I think that business is so uniquely positioned to be regenerative and to be a force for long-term human and environmental connection to all that's been created for us, and leave a culture of compassion through the power of small. And you've illustrated that through all the work that you've done, Masami. So thank you so much for coming on, for giving so much of yourself and just this podcast, but also just in every single thing you do. I encourage that people go out there and just follow the work you're doing, see how hard you're working to spread this as a global movement. I think you've been in 30 countries now after feeling like you got out of your small circle as a young Japanese backpacker, right? You've gone out and seen the world and you've seen the need and you've met it so well. So thank you for all that you do. We really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to, share these ideas with your audiences as well, because I think, it's just this moment of realizing, oh, actually, there's another way to look at this. That is the most profound thing, because we could be surrounded by same thing. We could be exactly in the same position, but just by having a different perspective, we can show up differently. And that many people showing up a little bit differently and then removing this, not removing, but expanding their family circle. And then feeling great about this like a sense of belonging, that it's no longer about separation. It's about connection, integration, collaboration, and working together. Because ultimately, we as human beings, parents, brothers, sisters, and member of communities and groups, we all care about something. So why don't we bring the care together rather than saying which way is right or wrong?
My sincere thanks to Masami for joining us today. Her insights on the profound power of daily giving and authentic purpose are a testament to the power of values-driven leadership. And now, here is your steward's call. This is one key moment I think you can take from our conversation and put into practice today. Stop waiting for the big future check. Your job is to make giving a daily discipline, an integral habit into your business's DNA. This proactive and small approach ensures your purpose is not merely a statement, but a living culture. Now remember, building a legacy isn't a future event, it's a daily practice. And so Masami today taught us that the problem of the world is that we draw our family circles too small. What you do today will shape the impact of the world you leave behind. And if you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to follow the Steward Chair wherever you get your podcasts. It really is the best way to ensure that you never miss an episode. And to help us grow this community, please share this episode with a leader you respect. A final thank you to our incredible team, executive producers Quentin Thomas and Thomas Master Totero, and to our managing editor, Daniel Master Totero. They are the true stewards behind this show. And I'm your host and researcher, Jeff Bond. And with that, go and be a leader worth following.